Good afternoon. It's Saturday, the 23rd of May. I'm Erin Viner. This is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. We open with a breakdown in international efforts toward nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation after Washington, Ottawa, and London blocked a document aimed at ridding the world of nuclear weapons. The move follows 4 weeks of negotiations at the United Nations on ways to improve compliance with the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which U.S. officials say that they torpedoed because Egypt and other Arab states tried to cynically manipulate the process by setting a deadline for Israel and its neighbors to meet within months to establish a nuclear weapons-free zone in the Middle East by March of 2016. The proposal also called for UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon to convene a conference on the issue ahead of the target date, whether or not Jerusalem and the other nations agree to an agenda. Israel is not a party to the NPT and has never publicly acknowledged what is widely believed to be its own extensive atomic arms program, which such a forum could force the country to declare. Since passage of the document required consensus agreement, its rejection by the United States, Britain, and Canada now means that the entire blueprint for international nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation has been stalled until the convening of the next Treaty Review Conference in 2020. U.S. Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security Rose Goldmueller explained why Washington found the proposal to be incompatible with its own long-standing policy on the matter.
We have made clear throughout the process that we will not accept the efforts by some to cynically manipulate the RevCon or try and leverage the negotiation to advance their narrow objectives at the expense of the treaty or of our shared long-standing principles. But a number of these states, and in particular Egypt, were not willing to let go of these unrealistic and unworkable conditions included in the draft text. In the end, the proposed final document outlined a process that would not build the foundation of trust necessary for holding a productive conference that could reflect concerns of all regional states.
Egypt is extremely disappointed at the end of this conference, and after 1 month of diligent work by all delegations and after great world expectations, we are blocked from strengthening the NPT and the goal of a world free of nuclear weapons by 3 delegations. We are equally concerned with the negative messages we have been receiving recently on the implementation of the Middle East resolution and the convening of the conference.
Washington's move to block the nuclear disarmament text is being widely interpreted as motivated over Israel's concerns, and the development came just as President Barack Obama reaffirmed his country's commitment and support for Israel. While speaking in Georgetown at one of Washington's largest synagogues, the American leader defended the nuclear deal being negotiated between Iran and world powers, but attempted to assure those gathered at the Adass Israel congregation that he will not accept a bad agreement that could threaten the security of the Jewish state.
This deal will have my name on it, so nobody has a bigger personal stake in making sure that it delivers on its promise. I want a good deal. I'm interested in a deal that blocks every single one of Iran's pathways to a nuclear weapon, every single path. A deal that imposes unprecedented inspections on all elements of Iran's nuclear program so that they can't cheat. And if they try to cheat, we will immediately know about it and sanctions snap back on. A deal that endures beyond a decade, that addresses this challenge for the long term. In other words, a deal that makes the world and the region, including Israel, more secure. That's how I define a good deal. I can't stand here today and guarantee an agreement will be reached. We're hopeful, we're working hard, but nothing's agreed until everything is agreed. And I've made clear that when it comes to preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, all options are and will remain on the table. Moreover, even if we do get a good deal, there remains the broader issue of Iran's support for terrorism and regional destabilization and ugly threats against Israel. And that's why our strategic partnership with Israel will remain no matter what happens in the days and years ahead. And that's why the people of Israel must always know America has its back. And America will always have its back.
Obama also addressed the stagnating peace process between Israel and the Palestinians.
The Palestinians are not the easiest of partners. The neighborhood is dangerous. And we cannot expect Israel to take existential risks with their security, so that any deal that takes place has to take into account the genuine dangers of terrorism and hostility. But it is worthwhile for us to keep up the prospect, the possibility of bridging divides and being just and looking squarely at what's possible but also necessary in order for Israel to be the type of nation that it was intended to be in its earliest founding.
Though he once vigorously opposed congressional involvement, Obama has signed legislation that gives the House power to review and potentially reject the nuclear deal being negotiated with Iran. The new law imposes conditions on the president's ability to take executive action by preventing him from waiving congressional sanctions for at least 30 days while the lawmakers examine any final deal. Congress would still have to pass a resolution of disapproval to reject an agreement, which Obama is likely to veto. Turning to the northern border, where the Hezbollah terror organization based in Lebanon has reportedly built a vast network of underground tunnels for a future war with Israel. According to a Lebanese paper linked to the group, the passages are being used to conceal tens of thousands of missiles. After examining the arsenal and Hezbollah infrastructure, the daily Asafir concluded that the group's forces are highly prepared for a conflict, including their sprawling underground array of tunnels, bunkers, and surveillance outposts on the border with Israel. The passages are also described as being highly advanced and said to have been constructed with durable concrete around the clock with primitive means to evade detection by the IDF. In other regional news, the Islamic State has claimed responsibility for the suicide bombing at a Shiite mosque in Saudi Arabia and is warning that more black days loom ahead in a direct challenge to the rulers of the Sunni kingdom. So far, the fatalities in yesterday's attack are estimated at 21 dead and 81 wounded in what was the deadliest assault in the country since a 2004 al-Qaeda attack on compounds housing foreign workers that sparked a massive crackdown by security forces. The ISIS bombing was carried out in the village of Al-Qudai in the eastern Qatif region, specifically targeting Shiites, who are also regularly denounced by ultra-conservatives in Saudi Arabia as heretics. The claim of responsibility was read on the terrorists' Al-Bayan radio station last night, identifying the suicide bomber as a Saudi citizen operating with the nom de guerre of Abu Amr al-Najdi. The attack comes as Riyadh is not only participating in the U.S.-led coalition targeting the Islamic State group in Iraq and Syria, but also leading an alliance of Arab states against Shiite insurgents in Yemen. 2 residents of the U.S. state of California have been arrested by the FBI for aspiring to join ISIS forces. The U.S. Attorney's Office has charged Nader al-Huzail and Mohamed al-Badawi with conspiring to provide material support to a terrorist group. Both of the shackled 24-year-olds appeared at a packed federal courtroom in Santa Ana. Al-Huzail was arrested late Thursday at Los Angeles International Airport. Badawi was taken into custody later the same day near the Anaheim home shared by both men. According to a court affidavit filed by the FBI, both of the suspects demonstrated support for the Islamic State on social media and in conversation, saying that it would be a blessing to join the fight and die on the battlefield. After becoming engaged to a Palestinian woman that he met online, who is also an ISIS disciple, al-Huzail used his roommate's debit card with his permission to buy a one-way ticket bound for Tel Aviv with a 6-hour layover in Istanbul. After his arrest, he told authorities that he was planning to deplane in Turkey and make his way to Islamic State forces to join their jihad. Both men face maximum sentences of 15 years in prison if convicted. Focus on destroying America, killing Jews, and avoidance of infighting among Muslims. That was the overall message taken from documents seized by American forces in Pakistan after killing al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. According to the findings, which have just now been released for publication, bin Laden felt cut off from his supporters, disappointed by al-Qaeda failures, upset by infighting, and he missed his family. In a video statement, the terror boss is seen urging one of his wives to choose to live beside him in paradise as he directs her to send their son into the battlefield. There were 103 documents and videos released from the raid that was carried out in May of 2011 in Abbottabad. Among the material are training manuals, budget documents, plans for workshops and personnel training, updates on terrorist plots, membership applications, including questionnaires about the candidate's willingness to execute suicide attacks, and emergency contact information should one succeed in becoming an Islamic martyr. Additional documents seized during the operation remain classified. And in the latest milestone in the process of rebuilding after the 9/11 terror attacks, New York City is about to open an observation deck at the recently opened One World Trade Center. The three-story facility is at the top of the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere, at the site where the Twin Towers once stood. The observatory rises 386 meters above the bustling streets of Manhattan and has enormous windows framing magnificent views of the New York harbor and up to 80 kilometers away. 350,000 tickets costing between $26 and $32 have already been sold or reserved for visits to the One World Observatory, which officially opens to the public on May 29th. The deck beats out the nearby Empire State Building by a whopping 5.5 meters and also boasts unmatched technologically advanced features such as its 5 SkyPod elevators that shuttle visitors to the 102nd floor in just 47 seconds while playing an animated time-lapse video depicting the recreation of the development of New York City's skyline on immersive floor-to-ceiling screens that do include images of the old World Trade Centers, which appear for just a few seconds.
We thought that the right way, the most respectful way to treat the old Twin Towers was to display them in the appropriate time that they existed. And so as you saw when you came up, they appear suddenly and they disappear very quickly as well, because in the scheme of from 1500 to 2015, they're only there for a few seconds of the elevator ride up. So we thought about it a lot. We felt that it was the most respectful way to deal with it. And so far, the folks that I've interacted with have told me that they think that we treated it exactly the right way.
The Festival of Shavuot begins at sundown this evening, commemorating God's revelation of the Torah to Moses and the nation of Israel on Mount Sinai after the Exodus from Egypt. Jewish communities throughout the world will spend all night tonight immersed in Torah study, and one such session held in the city of Elad this year is dedicated to the memory of the 3 teenagers murdered by Hamas last summer, Gilad Sher, Naftali Frankel, and Eyal Ifrach, who lived in Elad until his death. While speaking to Arutz Sheva, Ifrach's father, Ori, said that the boys spiritually uplifted the entire community, so studying in their honor is the best way to prepare for the receiving of the Torah, as he sadly observed that it has now been exactly 11 months since the boys' burial. Thousands of Christians are in Jerusalem to observe the Pentecost in what many say could be the largest celebration of the festival in Israeli history. Participants from over 70 nations will gather at the 5-day Global Congress, sponsored by the evangelical Empowered 21 organization, whose president and global co-chair, Dr. William Wilson, who is also the president of the Oral Roberts University, explained to IBA's Ellie Wogelenter that many Christians describe the Pentecost as the birth of the church during commemoration of the descent of the Holy Spirit upon the apostles.
We use the word spirit-empowered to describe a part of Christianity some people call Pentecostals charismatics. These are people that believe in the work of the Holy Spirit, the gifts of the Spirit, healing, tongues, prophecy, the immediacy of God. Of course, most all of us track that root back to, in the New Testament in Christian scriptures, Acts chapter 2, which talks about the outpouring of the Holy Spirit as declared in Joel chapter 2, that happened here in Jerusalem, that really birthed the early church. Okay, it started really in many ways this movement of people that believe in the fullness of the Holy Spirit. There was a recapturing of that in the last century, and so people are coming to Jerusalem in anticipation to experience again what Christian believers experienced here almost 2,000 years ago.
The upper room, the room above King David's tomb.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, in Christian scriptures, after Jesus departed, he told the disciples to wait in Jerusalem. They went to this place called the upper room. Now, traditionally, it's the site above David's tomb. We're not sure if that's the exact room. That's doubtful, of course, but it at least gives us a place to mark. They stayed there for 10 days and waited to experience what Jesus said would be power from heaven. At that point, then, 10 days, which was exactly on Shavuot, which was Pentecost, they experienced the power of the Holy Spirit. One of the Christian disciples named Peter said, this is what Joel prophesied of in Joel chapter 2, that in the last days I will pour out my Spirit on all flesh. And so Christian believers believe that what happened there at the upper room was a fulfillment of Joel's prophecy, and that they were able to experience the fullness of the Holy Spirit. Remembering, of course, that early Christians were Jew first. So the entire church, the entire early church had Jewish roots. They were all Jewish people who had come to believe in Jesus as their Messiah. And so they experienced this outpouring of the Holy Spirit, which gave them power, authority, dynamic, to share the message of Jesus Christ with the world. So as we come to this Congress and we get ready for what will happen over the next few days here in Jerusalem, Christian believers are coming from around the world. We want to experience again this spiritual power, this infusion from God. We believe God's alive, even in the 21st century. We want to know Him and want to experience His power that will help us give testimony to Him in all the earth.
How would you, if I can ask this question like this, ranking this holiday, Shavuot for us, Pentecost for you, in terms of other holidays in the calendar year?
Fantastic. Of course, in the Christian calendar, you have Christmas, you have Easter, and then really you have Pentecost. Okay, Pentecost is a huge moment. Christian believers feel that this was the birthing of the church. It was the coming out party of the church. That day in Jerusalem, Peter would preach the first gospel message to a mass audience. 3,000 people would be converted to Christianity that day, or converted to be followers of Jesus. And so this is a big holiday for us. We're very excited. Churches all over the world will be celebrating while we're here in Jerusalem. We'll be sending the signal out by television, and so we'll have millions of people around the world watching what goes on in Jerusalem, and then using their local services to talk about Shavuot, Pentecost, and the power of the Holy Spirit.
We read and know, of course, there's so much conflict, religious conflict going on in Israel in general, Jerusalem specifically.
Yes.
How is that conflict that we read about impacting this group in your visit?
Yeah. I think, of course, we feel some of the pressure of that. There are a number of elements in Jerusalem these days, and we have felt impact from that. Different folks commenting on our coming, afraid of our coming, it seems, which we feel like is unfounded a bit. The people coming here love the Jewish people. They pray for Israel on a regular basis. We're not here to put pressure on anyone. We are here, of course, to announce what we feel is the good news of Jesus Christ. That's who we are. We don't apologize for that. But we're very grateful that the government has stood with us to say, no, in Israel, we believe in religious freedom. And I think for the Israeli citizen, this is a really important value, that in all of the Middle East, this is the one place in the Middle East where people can say what they believe and believe what they want to believe and still be free to worship as they feel. This is a high value, and I think is one of the things that keeps the blessings of God upon Israel and Jerusalem. So we're grateful for this freedom that we have to worship God here.
The IBA weather team says that we're heading into another unseasonably warm couple of days, starting tomorrow, when we'll see fair conditions and a significant rise in temperatures. Here's the forecast at home and abroad over the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. I'll be back at this desk tomorrow. Hope to see you again then. We now leave you with images of traditional Shavuot festivities celebrated at moshavim and kibbutzim across the country. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a joyous Shavuot holiday and shalom from Jerusalem.